All right, it's that time again. Sit back, relax, and let us take you home. We are two dudes, one pod.
All right, guys, welcome to Two Dudes, One Pod. We're here with the famous John Ireland, Lakers broadcaster, ESPN LA broadcaster. So, John, first of all, thank you for coming.
Sure. Thank you for coming, I guess I should say. You guys came to us today.
Yeah.
But you had to talk to Bergman before you talked to me.
Yeah.
Did you guys survive that?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
We did. Bergman's a great guy. You know, we kind of like corporate Greg. He's a special guy. Like, you guys have all been in this business for so long. And one thing that we're learning is that everybody's kind of connected and have in this broadcasting world that Casper and I are still learning. But, you know, once again, thank you for doing with this with us. When we first started Two Dudes One Pod, it was just kind of like, let's see where it goes.
Right.
And it was about,
You were like DeAndre's podcast, where
Right,
you just kept
right.
promising you were going to do stuff and never did any of it.
you know what, thanks to you, we're like, okay, you know, we got to keep doing this because, you know, Johnny I keeps giving him a hard time. Like,
Right.
So, and, you know, we got some good advice. We had never done anything like this. And like people like Greg and even Jorge were just like, you know what? Just keep doing it and you'll figure it out along the way.
Reps. Yeah, I was reading
Yeah.
the other day that Mason, when he started the Culture Pop podcast, was just doing it for fun. You know, he just wanted an outlet because he loves entertainment.
Right.
And he's done over 300 episodes
Wow.
now. So that's where you're heading. Right.
Yeah.
When you get to the 300 mark, we'll throw you a big party.
Yeah. You know, and when I did the research, they said most podcasts last 7 episodes.
That's it.
Yeah. And that's
I don't
it.
even think DeAndre's lasted that long. I think the Blueprint lasted about 5 episodes, and like they never had any guests. They just said, "Okay, we're gonna have all this great stuff coming," and none of it ever came. And then Cody got a job in Bristol, and now it's over.
Yeah, we were really gonna just, hey, let's interview the fans of ESPN LA, which we do that too, but when you guys got on board to say, hey, you know, we'll come on, we
Sure.
thought that was great.
Yeah, I
So,
loved my favorite one that I've seen from you guys is the one you did with John Ferris. I mean, he's
Yeah.
such a great guy.
Oh yeah, he is.
And you know, my wife Lisa has beat cancer twice.
Wow.
And when you're in it you can't see anything else than the end of your own mortality. Like, it's incredibly humbling. You can do everything right, and it's kind of, as John indicated to you guys, it's kind of by the grace of God go you. You know, you
Right.
never know. Like, my wife talks about all the time how when she would go in to get chemo, like, the person on her left side didn't make it. The person on her right side is healthy and made it the whole time. Fortunately, she is too, but it's almost kind of the luck of the draw. So I really enjoyed hearing John kind of make it through that. And I think when you get through, I know in Lisa's case, when you make it through something like that, you're incredibly more grateful for what you have. And that's what John came across as. He's just a good dude who's very thankful for where he is in life. And I'm glad he's kind of with us because it's fun to see somebody who likes their life as much as he does. And he articulated that really well to you guys, I thought.
Yeah, when you do those kind of stories, then you find out, like, when people hear that, you know, they start telling you their stories, and you find out, like, we all have a lot more in common than what we think.
Yeah, well, especially with like cancer or leukemia or any of that stuff, it's like, even if you haven't had it, you know somebody who's had it, or you know somebody that's been touched by it. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, I just turned 61, and I remember when I was 20, I thought, well, when I turn 40, there'll be a cure for all this. And the doctors do say there's never been a better time to get it, but at the same time, there is no cure for a lot of it.
Right.
And so you got to be aggressive. You got to get checked. I say this to you as I just scheduled my latest colonoscopy.
Oh, okay.
Which will be, I have a history of that in my family, so this will be number 4 for me. Have either one of you guys had one?
Not
I
yet.
had it twice.
Okay, so you know the drill. The worst part's the night before.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. But Casper, you're young. How old are you?
I'm 40. I'm
Well,
40.
you're gonna get the
I'm
call
getting
pretty
there.
soon.
I'm
Yeah,
getting
you don't
there.
look 40. Good
Oh,
for
thank you. I try to do my workouts and try to.
Well, it's working.
Yeah,
Keep it up.
Thank you so much. But you shared about your interest in the John Ferris story, and it was something that really made us just appreciate how much you as radio personalities have been able to create this connection with the listeners, because listening to John Ferris' story and battling through leukemia, he said a lot of that kept him going was you guys. And the sense of having that connection with radio personality and the power that it brought in terms of the positive and fighting and battling this leukemia. Like when you hear these kinds of stories, these kind of testimonies, how does it make you feel as a personality and so forth?
Well, obviously great, but it's not the first time we've heard it. There's a listener, we have Eric Schumann in Fountain Valley, who went through the same thing John did. And I got a letter from him the other day that he's now clear. He's been clear for a few years. He's no longer taking meds. And he goes back and thanks his doctors every year and thanks the people that he made it through. And he puts on that list Mason and I, because what you can do in radio is you can provide people an escape. So if you're somebody like John or somebody like Eric, and all you're doing that day is going through chemo in the morning, and then in the rest of the day, you're just going to be sick. You know, you just got to get around and make it through it. And so Mason, it's one of the reasons Mason and I don't talk a lot of politics. We try not to get too serious because we think for 3 hours we can provide a diversion.
Right.
And so for people going through something like that, a lot of times it's helpful.
Right.
Because for 3 hours, they don't have to think about the fact
Right.
that they're going through chemo or they're getting sick. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like we're more important than we are. We're not. But Mason and I joke that we're working in the toy store of life. Or as somebody said, how would you best describe sports radio? And I said, the easiest way to explain it to somebody is, and you guys can appreciate this because you come to a lot of our events, it's like a sports bar without the liquor.
Right.
Okay? In your case, when you come to our events, you can have liquor. In Mason's case, sometimes he drinks anyway. Yeah, but that's the best way to describe sports radio. You want a place where people can come, can talk sports, can hang out, have fun. And so every day we get to do it. We just don't have a bar.
Correct.
But
Right.
if Morales has his way, we might have one soon. So go, Chris, I guess.
How much does that weigh into your getting into broadcasting, radio broadcasting? Like, because I feel radio broadcasters, it's like they're telling stories. It's not that they're covering a game, but they're creating the picture. And so how much does that go into what you do as a sportscaster and just being able to create that storyline for the listeners to really picture what they're listening to? It's
interesting you put it that way because I think what sportscasting in general is storytelling. And I started when I was in high school. My dream was I wanted to write for Sports Illustrated. I wanted to be a writer. Okay. And when I got older, I was in high school, and I got a job covering high school sports at my local paper. And they loved me because I was an innings eater, and I would go to all the games, and I'd write stories, and they didn't have to pay me very much. And so once I talked to these sports writers, these guys who've been doing it, they said to me, you know, the future is electronic. He said, you should learn how to talk on the radio. And he said, if you can ever get a TV sports job, those guys like Jim Hill and Fred Rogan, that's where you can make a lot of money and you can have a lot of fun and you don't have to work as much as like a sports writer will get to a game at 2:00 and won't go home till midnight.
Right.
A TV sports guy, and I did this for 30 years, will get there an hour before the game and then, do his live hits and then sometimes stay for the late hit. But if you don't have to, you can go home. And so I realized early on, okay, I know how to write. I'm going to learn how to talk on the radio, and then I'm going to learn how to present it on TV. And the best example I give of this is Mike Trudell. So when I was the Lakers sideline reporter on TV, and I had that job for 11 years, and then they hired me to be the radio play-by-play guy. And we found Trudell in Minnesota. And I realized early on he was in his 20s, and I said, the thing you can do is you can write. He was writing for the Timberwolves website. I go, you can talk on the radio, you can do podcasts, and you can be on TV. I said, as long as you keep pursuing all three of those avenues, you're going to be able to save your employers a lot of money. So instead of hiring one guy to be the sideline reporter, one guy to write for Lakers.com, one guy to do a podcast, Trudell can do all three.
Right.
He gets a triple salary. They don't have to pay three people.
Right.
And that helps everybody. So that's the way this is heading and has been heading for a lot of years. He's kind of a modern day John Ireland. Okay. I started early and I said, okay, I can write, I can do radio, I can do TV. Trudell does all three at the same time. And so he's able to monetize it that way. So that's kind of the fact that you guys are doing this is a really good idea because you never know where it's going to go.
Right.
You know, the more people you talk to, the more relationships you build, the more fun you have with it. you just never know. I mean, there's podcasts now like Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce might make $100 million
Yes, we just saw that.
doing this. Pat McAfee started as a podcaster, so what you guys are doing is really smart.
Yeah, and I think what we've been able to really establish more of this niche is the listener's perspective. People that listen to these stations, listen to these shows, and then providing our perspective from it. But I also think the remotes that ESPN LA has made, these different opportunities to bring personalities and listeners together has made it possible so that we can create this type of podcast.
Right. Well, and think about this too, that in radio, we're a more personal medium than TV is. So I was in TV news for 25 years, and that's very formal. I was always in a suit and tie. I always had 3 minutes. I had to, you got a producer in your ear saying, hurry up, get out, get out. Radio is, we're with you every day for 3 or 4 hours. We're with some guys more than they're with their family. Guys that go to work. I met a UPS driver 6-7 months ago, and he goes, I'm with ESPN LA more than my wife and kids. I get up early. My wife and kids are still in bed. I get home. I have dinner with them. My kids are little. They go to bed. The next day, I go Travis and Sliwa, Mason and Ireland, Sedano and Cap. So I'm really with you guys 6 hours. And so they feel like they get to know you, because when you're doing 3 minutes of sports TV, you're really doing just the facts. Right. Here's what happened. Here's the score. You try and do something light to have some fun with it. When you have 3.5 hours, you can do whatever you want. So that's why radio is really more fun than TV. TV pays better. Radio is more fun.
Yeah. So when you're doing Lakers, especially during the season, that's a lot on you. You're doing all the games. You're traveling. You're doing radio. How do you balance family life?
It is the biggest challenge, Ray, that I have. To complicate matters, I have a special needs son. I have a son that's on the autism spectrum. He's 22. He's doing well, but it's a full-time job to be a parent to a special needs kid. So I've got to spend as much time as I can with my wife, with him, to kind of get him set up and ready and kind of get him through life. And then, as you mentioned, I'm on the road. I'm in hotels 100 nights a year. I'm on 100 different flights. I'm back here. It is the biggest challenge I have, is to find time to have a life outside of work, because the people like you guys, you only hear me when I'm on the radio from 1 to 4. If it's a game day, I'll be on with Mason 1 to 4. I'll get a little bit of a break, and then I'm on with Michael from like 7 to 10. So I leave my house at 11 in the morning, don't get back till midnight, and then maybe the next day I'm getting on a plane. So it was funny. Mason called me last week, and he said, how much longer do you think you can do this? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I've figured out a way to make it work now, but my biggest challenge is to find time to have a life. I joke with Morales all the time, because Morales is so good at putting on events, that the events are what are going to kill me, because it's like, right. I can get, if I was just doing the show, and I was just doing the show from 1 to 4, and I was just doing the Laker games, I could make that work. Right. It's when the surprise stuff comes up. It's when you've got to do the live events, or I've got to, like the Lakers asked me to do a special appearance. Or somebody says, hey, I need you in a meeting at like noon tomorrow, when that's the only hour I had that whole week to spend with my son or my wife. That's the balance. That's the hardest part. But gotcha. I feel thankful, and I feel kind of lucky that I've been able to make it work. My employers have worked with me on it. I'll let you guys in on something funny. I mentioned I'm getting this colonoscopy coming up. In order to get the doctor I wanted to get, there's this doctor that the Lakers doctor is this guy, Dan Vigil, who is just an absolute rock star. Went to Harvard, smartest guy I've ever met, is in charge of UCLA Health in regards to the Lakers. So anytime I have any type of a medical issue, I just send a note to Dr. V, and he says, okay, I've got a perfect guy for this. So a few years ago, he introduced me to a really good gastrointestinal guy, and I explained, like, there's a history of colon cancer in my family, prostate cancer in my family. I've got to stay on top of this. This guy's super good. He's so good that you got to schedule him like 6 to 10 months out. Oh, like wow. He's that. Yeah. Like when I called the other day, I said, I need to schedule a colonoscopy. They said, okay, March. We're sitting here in August.
Oh,
and so I called him. I said, Kevin, what can you do? He goes, I'll find a way to get you in. I'll find a way to get you in. So he gets me in. And the day he got me in, we're going to still try and move it. But right now, the day he got me in is September 9th, which is the start of the new schedule. When Mason and I moved from 1 to 4 to 12 to 3. So as of right now, I won't be here that day because I got to get this done, but I'm hoping we can still change it. But that's an example of the challenges of trying to make it all. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You're always kind of moving pieces around trying to make it work.
Myself and like many other fans, when we watch the Lakers game, we like to listen to you and Michael. Like, we'll turn the volume down on the TV.
Biggest compliment you can get as a radio announcer is when people do that.
It's awesome. The way you call games, amazing. But, you and Michael Thompson, talk me through that, because Michael Thompson, he's all over the place sometimes. I mean, he's all over. I'm like,
right, but Ray,
that?
That's a really good thing.
Oh, yeah,
that he's
for sure.
like that.
And it's so entertaining.
So I agree with you. So I think Michael's the best color guy in the league, and I've heard them all. And that's nothing against any of the other guys. Matter of fact, the pair of announcers that are the closest to us in style is Sean Grande and Cedric Maxwell, who do the Celtics games. The Lakers. Max is super acerbic like Michael is. Sean is more like me. He's kind of a nuts and bolts play-by-play guy, but he's got a lot of diverse interest. Sean likes other sports. He likes wrestling. He's married. Sean's married to Dana Jacobson, who's been a friend of mine for 30 years. She was on ESPN.
Yeah, First Take and
she's
Pizza.
great. Sean's great. Max and Michael, if you guys have never heard this, whenever we play the Celtics, they go on each other's shows and just rip the crap out of the other one. And it's super funny. But my favorite part, Ray, about my job with the Lakers is that I get to do it with Michael because he makes me laugh every game. He's, he played in the league for a long time. He's got a son that plays in the league now. I joke all the time. I sent a tweet today that he should be the minister of common sense. He has a way to take a complex issue and in one sentence solve it. The tweet he sent out today was just an idea for the IOC. Okay, and of course he misspells every word in the tweet because he can't spell. He's Bahamian. He says, when you get a medal, when you get a gold, bronze, or silver medal, instead of having some no-name guy put the medal around your neck, why doesn't the International Olympic Committee bring in former champions? So, for example, like the other day, when Lyles won the 100 meters, the person to put the gold medal around would be Usain Bolt or Carl Lewis or something like that. It'd be a great way to recognize past Olympians. It'd be a huge thrill for the people that won it. Right. And I tweeted, I go, again, another example of why Michael should be minister of common sense.
Yes.
This is a great idea. We should start it in 2028. And he gets ideas like that all the time. Like one day he came to me and he goes, Michael's very patriotic, became a U.S. citizen late in life, 5-6 years ago, grew up in the Bahamas, was a Bahamian citizen. It was important for him to become a U.S. citizen because all of his kids are U.S. citizens. His wife, Julie, is. He wanted to have that as part of his heritage. And he said to me, he goes, Ireland, if somebody serves their country, somebody goes into the military and they see combat, okay, they literally put their life on the line. That person shouldn't have to pay taxes for the rest of their life.
I agree.
Doesn't that make perfect sense?
Yeah, perfect sense.
And it'd obviously be complicated, but it's not impossible. We could do it easily.
Right.
You just check a box that said, I served military combat. Here's my proof of service. I'm exempt from paying taxes. And I thought, what a brilliant idea. I mean, it would take a long time to execute it, and somebody smarter than us would have to figure it out. But Michael's right. If you put your life on the line, you shouldn't do it. So stuff like that, Ray, Michael, he's great with the basketball stuff, but he's great with the other stuff too. We, as you probably heard, we get in arguments during the games that have nothing to do with the games. We're glad people seem to enjoy it. When the Lakers were bad for that 6-year run at the end of Kobe's career, we created the third chair where we'd bring somebody famous in and sit with us, and we brought in over 100 people. And, everybody from Miley Cyrus to Justin Bieber to Gail Goodrich to Andy Garcia, the great actor who told us, and we didn't even know it, he played high school basketball in Miami against Michael. Andy's like 5'9", Michael's 6'9". I go, what do you remember at the game? He goes, I remember we were down 30 at half. And Michael didn't remember it, and Michael was really blown away by it. We brought Ric Flair, the wrestling legend. Michael loves wrestling.
Yes.
We brought him in. And so I know I've gone long on this one answer, but
it's quite
doing the games with Michael is my favorite part of the job.
I just want to go back to your memories covering Kobe Bryant, because obviously you just had the statue revealing of him and Gigi. And as somebody who, basically grew up watching Kobe, just any memories or that you could share, just his work ethic, just, watching him out there every day, like from your perspective, being able to watch this individual. Like how special was that?
Once in a generation player. And we've got another one now in LeBron. But with Kobe, there'll never be another one like him. And Casper, I could tell you literally, I could sit here for 5 hours and tell stories. I've told most of them on the radio before. Matter of fact, we joke all the time, and everybody now, because Mason and I have been on for 30 years, has probably heard all of my stories. But I'll just tell you this one quick one, which I've told on the air many, many times. There's a guy named Larry Drew who's an assistant coach in the NBA. He had a son, Larry Jr., who was a really good high school player. And Larry Sr. was one of our assistants when Kobe was on our team. And he went to, and Michael has done this with Kobe too, when Clay was in high school. Larry went to Kobe and said, hey, I really think it would help my son a lot if he did a workout with you, just one time, just worked out with you and saw how hard you go and saw how hard you work. And I think it would do a lot for kind of shaping his work ethic. And Kobe said, absolutely, give me his number. So he gives him Junior's number, and Kobe calls him, and he goes, hey, your dad says you might want to work out. He goes, of course. He goes, I'd love to. He goes, okay, what's your Wednesday look like? And Junior says, well, I'll make it work, whatever you want to do. He goes, okay, what's your address? Gives him the address. He goes, I'm going to pick you up at 4 o'clock, and we'll be done. He goes, that's perfect. I get home from school at 3:30. I'll be waiting for you at 4. Kobe goes, no, MFer, 4 a.m. I'm going to be there at 4 a.m., and you need to be ready. He goes, okay, I'll do it. So 4 a.m. Wednesday morning, Kobe pulls up, and Junior's ready, and they go hard at a gym for 2 hours, 4 to 6. And Kobe says to Junior, okay, I got to get you home so you can have breakfast and shower before you go to school. And Junior says to Kobe, what are you going to do? He goes, well, I got to go to practice. Practice starts at 8. And he goes, wait a minute. You're dripping in sweat. You just worked out for 2 hours. He goes, now you're going to go practice? And he goes, yeah, and I'm going to work out this afternoon too. Yeah. And so that was how dedicated he was to doing it. And I've made this joke a bunch. Mason and I have been on it every imaginable time of day. We've done mornings. We've done the Travis and Sliwa shift. We've done the shift where we are now. We've done afternoon drive. The first time Mason and I started, we were on at night from 7 to midnight. So we've been on every day part. So because I've worked with the Lakers for 25 years, I would, before we had the technology that we have now, and now when I travel, I have a box I take with me. You hook it up to the internet. I can do the show from my hotel room. But back then I had to do it from the arenas, wherever we were. We would just bring the engineer in early, and whatever time of the day Mason and I were on, I would show up and do my show. And it became a running joke that whatever I would show up, Kobe would be in the gym, and he'd be the only one. And he'd be shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, like 1,000 jump shots. Yeah. 10 in the morning, there's Kobe. 1 in the afternoon, there's Kobe. Now, keep in mind, these games don't start until 7 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And I never understood, guys, why you can't copy Kobe's talent, obviously. Mm-hmm. He developed that over his whole life. But you could copy his work ethic. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 15 or 20 years, seeing Kobe at the gym at all times of the day. Not to shout out another podcast, but last year I did a podcast with Tim DiFrancesco, who was our strength coach. He does a thing called Basketball Strong Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And I was telling that story to Tim, and Tim starts laughing. And I said, you're laughing because you know. And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, my phone would either text or ring at all hours of the night. And when I had Kobe, I never turned it off, never put it on silent. Because if he called you at 2 in the morning and he wanted to go shoot and you didn't answer, you were dead to him. You didn't understand his work ethic. So anytime he called, anytime I said, meet you in the lobby. And our security guys, I'm friends with all our security guys, they knew before they got to a city, and Tim talks about this on that podcast, he had to have gyms and keys to gyms set up everywhere in Minnesota, Denver, Chicago, New Orleans. We had to make friends with somebody who would give us a key to a gym, a high school gym, a YMCA, something. So when the bat phone rang, they could get in a car, and it would just be 3 people. It'd be one of our security guys, Robert, John, Rick, Ross. We have all these guys that travel with us. Great dudes. They're all former LAPD guys who are now in private security. It'd be one of them, the strength coach, and Kobe. And it could happen at any time. So when you ask me, like, talk about Kobe, it's my favorite thing to talk about.
Yes.
And you can tell I could talk about it for days.
And we love it.
But nobody had his work ethic.
Right.
And that's why I'm convinced Gigi would have been a megastar
Yes, I agree.
in women's basketball. Not just a little good. She would have been Caitlin Clark good. And which lies in the tragedy. I told this story in the other day. That if you guys came to my house, you wouldn't know I was a sportscaster. There's nothing in there that identifies me as somebody that does what I do for a living. It's what I do. It's not who I am. My wife kind of decorates the house. That's the way it's always worked. Kobe, when he did his last book before he died, wrote me a really nice note that I could frame, and I have 100 pictures of me and Kobe, interviewing him on media days and after games, stuff like that. And I was going to put this frame in a frame with some pictures of me and put the note in the middle just so it would remind me of him, and I can't do it, at least not yet. I'm too sad.
Yeah.
I'll do it one day,
Right.
but I need more time because I just think it's so friggin' sad that not only we lost Kobe, but we lost all those little girls.
Yes.
And there's nothing about that story that doesn't stink, other than, I will say this, that Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss did a really cool thing. When Kobe died, we were all kind of lost. Like, I'll use us as an example. We didn't know, should we go on the air every day and talk about him? Or is that going to make people sad or mad? Is that going to make people tune out? Are they going to get tired of us telling Kobe stories? Or, like, do we move on from this? Like, how long is enough to talk about it? A week, a month, a year? And nobody knew. And Rob and Jeannie wrote emails to the entire Lakers staff. And Rob had a line I'll never forget. Because it was like he knew what we were all thinking. He goes, a lot of you are probably wondering if it's okay to talk to me or anyone else about Kobe and Gigi. The answer is we have to, because we are now the torchbearers of their legacy. We're the ones that knew them. We're the ones, and we can't let their memories die. So talk about them whenever you get the chance. So when you guys ask me about this, you can tell I could go forever, because we got permission from his best friends, from the Laker organization, which is great why they're doing multiple statues. Great that Vanessa was there. Great that she's always so articulate talking about him, because they made it cool and they gave us permission to tell Kobe and Gigi stories, which, as you can tell, I love to do.
Right. No, and I think during that time, as people listening to that and just being incredibly devastated, I was also at those moments where I'm listening, but I'm like crying. But at the same time, it's like I want to still listen to this. I want to know about. I love hearing these stories as much as it's devastating to hear, as much as it's bringing tears. It's just something that it keeps the memory alive, and it is just something that is, even to this day, I still can't believe it.
So that's one of the reasons, Casper, why every year on Kobe Day, and it's coming up, this year it's on a Saturday, so maybe we'll do it on a Friday, we play the fourth quarter of Kobe's last game on Mason and Ireland. And it's just the last 5 minutes of Michael and I just coming out of our shoes, because it's my favorite game that I've ever called on a 20-win Laker team. I've covered 9 finals, and that's my favorite game I've ever called, because none of us could believe it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if you score 30 in your last game, that's really good. You score 40, maybe nobody ever does that. You score 50, you probably can't believe it. You score 60, get out of here. And I said this during the game. You turn this in as a Hollywood script, they kick it back.
Yes.
Because it's just too unbelievable. Right. And I said a couple of times during that broadcast, if I wasn't sitting here, I wouldn't believe it.
Right.
I mean, it was just like every time he touched the ball, and Utah was trying to cover him, it didn't matter. And everything just starts going in. And they were down by like 15, and we all didn't care about the game because it was a terrible team. We just wanted Kobe to go out big.
Yeah.
And he brings them back, and they win the game. And Michael and I don't know how to say it, don't know how to cover it. The Warriors were going for 73 wins that night at the exact same time as Kobe, and nobody cared about the Warriors. Yeah. Kobe's game was on regular ESPN. They moved the Warriors to ESPN too.
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why we replay that every year is so people don't forget about him. And every year we hear from people that say, I'd never heard that before. And by the way, if you want to, you can, one of our listeners, great guy named Kevin Smets, who is an editor, a film editor in Hollywood.
Okay.
Went and found the ESPN video and matched Michael and I's call of the fourth quarter and put it on YouTube. So if you Google on YouTube, John Ireland, Michael Thompson, Kobe's last game, you can watch it and hear us call it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's something for if you're a big Kobe fan.
We'll put it on the link to the pod.
Yeah, and I'm really glad Kevin did that because it I think sums up if somebody said put something in a time capsule that's going to explain Kobe Bryant, that's what I'd put in there.
And I would just kind of say that you've had the opportunity not to only cover that moment, but you had the opportunity to cover LeBron breaking the record for the most points scored. So just when you look back at these down the road, what will be the thing that you will say to John Ireland when you look back of all of these things that you were able to experience and cover? What will be kind of in a sentence that you will
that I might be the luckiest sportscaster ever born. I went from when I got here, the first year I was here, the Lakers drafted Kobe or traded for him after the Hornets drafted him and signed Shaq. So that was my first year at KCAL. And so I get here when Kobe and Shaq get here, and I ride that whole wave.
Yeah.
And then they trade Shaq, and we go in that dip. And we trade for Pau Gasol, and I ride that wave. And then I get the end of Kobe's career, and I ride that wave. And then LeBron shows up. I mean, you can't get any luckier than that. So I try and remember that there are a million people that would kill to be in those chairs that Michael and I get to sit in. So I try to never take it for granted. It could end tomorrow. The Lakers, God forbid, if they sold the team and somebody wanted to bring in their own announcer, or if the Bus family gets mad at me if I say something stupid, or, it could all go tomorrow. And if it does, I will look back on it and say, no regrets. I'm incredibly lucky that not only I got to do it, but I got to do it with Michael. But look at my timing. I got here the same time as Kobe and Shaq and then wrote it all the way through LeBron. I mean, you can't get much luckier.
Will there ever be a book? Will there be a book to tell about it?
Okay, so it's funny you say that. I wrote a diary the year that Peyton and Malone came to the Lakers. I was traveling with that team.
Okay.
And I said, I'm just going to write everything down in case I ever want to revisit it. And part of me says I should write a book one day. And part of me says I shouldn't. I know this. I'll never write it while I'm still employed by the team. Mm-hmm. I think that would be betraying a confidence. I wouldn't do that because there's some you never know what people consider sacred. Like, I'll give you guys an example. We're not supposed to ever talk about anything that happens on the plane. The plane is kind of off limits. That's why you don't hear me tell a lot of plane stories. But every once in a while, something so funny happens that it's not material to basketball that I'll talk about it. And matter of fact, after Kobe died, I was describing the despair on the plane, and I got a call from somebody in Lakers management and went, John, I know you're devastated, but you can't talk about the plane. Just don't do it. The plane is a safe space. Everybody knows that what happens on the plane stays on the plane. Don't do it. So I try and remember that too. If something like really funny happens that has nothing to do with basketball, they're okay with me telling that story. But other than that, it's kind of off limits. So that would be why I may not do it. But we'll see. I doubt it. I don't think I'll do it. And I'll definitely never do it while I'm still working for the team.
Okay, I want to switch it back to the fans. As you know, we have these communities, right? We got the Travis and Sliwa community. I think they're called the All-Stars. You got Mason and Ireland Mafia. And then you got the Circle of Trust. So I want to put this to bed, this whole circle of trolls thing. The circle of trolls.
Right.
So some people took it personal. Some of us get the bit. There's all sorts of different personalities in and out of there. But tell me what you think of the Circle of Trust.
First of all, listeners, and you guys are included in this group, listeners that live and die with us, the P1s, are the heart of the station. Everything like that is a bit. So I felt like the Mandy's before this one, that the Circle of Trust rallied so hard behind Sedano and Cap that those guys kind of cleaned up. And so I turned it into a bit saying, we have no chance to win anything because the Circle of Trolls is going to hammer us. You know, they're with Sedano and Cap, blah, blah, blah. But then what happened was they all kind of rallied behind us.
Yeah.
So I killed the bit. And now everybody says, why do you call them Circle of Trolls anymore? Well, I can't. They all voted for us. But the other thing was that, and you guys know this, the kind of cool thing about sports radio is it brings people together that otherwise wouldn't be on the same page. So in other words, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, if you're black, white, Asian, it just doesn't matter. If you like sports, there's a place for you under the tent. And we all give each other a hard time. It's kind of like a fraternity. And so we all give each other a hard time. So that's where the Circle of Trolls thing was born. But I killed it after the last Mandy's because those guys you guys all rallied behind us. So I don't think I'll ever say it again, but maybe we'll see. If we need to bring up an old bit, it's there to go to.
You know, some fans are harsher than others. You know, they come at you guys pretty hard sometimes. But really, the secret is engagement. Like once you engage them a little more, they soften up.
Right. Well, everybody's. Chris Broussard, who's over at Fox now, has a saying. He calls them Twitter muscles. Yeah. He says everybody's got Twitter muscles until you actually meet them or you talk to them, and then they couldn't be nicer. Right. Most people are like that. Social media can be bad, really bad. Like the example I always tell is, you guys probably remember this, but Ramona used to have this really bad habit of when she would leave the studio, she would forget to sign out of her Twitter account. So then I would take it over and just write a bunch of ridiculous tweets that Ramona would never write. I mean, nothing like stuff like, the worst decision I ever made was to go to Stanford. I wish I should have gone to Cal, you know, like that. Or I'd write, Mason and Ireland taught me everything I know. Without them, I would be useless. You know, and then she'd get home and everybody have a big laugh out of it. But what I realized was I got to read her, and she doesn't care. We're really good friends. But I get to read her replies, like the stuff that people come at her with. And some of it is incredibly mean. Yeah. And, you know, being a female in sports is just and the interesting thing, guys, was when people come at me or at Mason or at Sedano or at Cap, they come at us for what we say. Right. When they come at women, they come at them for their appearance. Right. And it's ridiculous. And so I get frustrated with that. And when people are mean or when they, you know, when they attack people that I work with and that I like, I get a little defensive. But you're right, Ray, for the most part. If you engage with these fans, if you let them know that you're listening to them, if you let them know that their opinion matters, chances are you'll make a fan out of them. Not always, but chances are you can do it.
So you brought up your relationship with your son. Special needs son on the autistic spectrum. How important, because you've also been a strong advocate for autism and for those that have children that are on the autistic spectrum, but just how important is it to kind of get the message out there and to more importantly show, like, you know, these individuals are just as capable as anybody else and they have all the tools to be successful?
Yeah, it's a great question, Casper, and I appreciate you asking me that because I love talking about this. Here's the thing with people on the autism spectrum. They all can work. They can't be like necessarily front-facing, face of the company. People like, for example, my son loves Islands, loves the restaurant. So, and he's gotten to know everybody from going over there. We live close to one, so he can walk to it. And so I've gotten to know all the managers over there because, Jack, people on the autism spectrum, especially my son, have no filter. They'll just walk in, they'll ask you a million questions. He'd walk up to you and go, Casper, you have cool hair. How do you get your hair like that? you know, blah, blah. What kind of car do you drive? Yeah. Do you have any brothers and sisters? Where do you live? You know, stuff like that. Yeah. And so I went to Dan McCausland, who's the regional manager of the islands where I work. Great guy. I said, Dan, I need to get Jack some work experience. I go, it may not work. He's never had a job before. But would you be amenable to putting him on the cleanup crew and just seeing if he can make it work? He said, absolutely. Everybody here loves Jack. Let's try it. We'll try it for a month. And shout out to Kim Casillas, who's the manager there and his boss. And I called Kim after a month. And she said, everybody here loves him. As soon as we tell him to do something, tell him, go bust that table. Go back and do dishwashing for 45 minutes. We got to clean this part. You got to take trash. You know, wherever they send him. He goes, he's enthusiastic. He likes talking to everybody. And the thing that I've learned because I'm around a lot of people on the spectrum, because I've been taking Jack to various programs for his whole life, is if you give autistic people a chance to work in your company, whatever your company is, you'll get more out of it than even they will. It gives you a sense that you're doing something nice for somebody that wouldn't otherwise have a job. The biggest challenge for special needs parents is that 70 to 80% of those people never hold a steady job, but it's getting better. It used to be like 95%.
Right.
But now a lot of companies have programs that get people, disabled people, people with intellectual disabilities into their company, and they find roles for them. Like the job I envisioned for Jack one day is he's obsessed with cars, and he's really good on computers.
Okay.
So I think what he'll end up doing one day is he'll work for a car dealer that has a website
Right.
that sells cars. Like if you go to any car dealer's website, you'll see 200, 300, 400 cars where somebody's taken 30 pictures of this car. They've typed up a description. Here's what this car is all about. They need people to do that. Right. Jack, my son, would be perfect for that. You would take, go take pictures of that Escalade over there. Take 30 or 40 pictures and write up a description and send it to me. And he would love to do it. He'd be good at it. That way, there's a place for them. They feel a sense of belonging. We're getting way better. Colleges are getting better with programs for special needs kids. Companies are getting better with hiring special needs kids. But it's a fight. Still more than 50%. Like I said, it's about 70 now. Never hold like a steady, real job. But I would have told you, Casper, 10 years ago, Jack had no chance of ever holding a job and no chance of ever living on his own.
Right.
In the last 10 years, because he's been in a lot of these programs, he's definitely going to have a job, and he's definitely going to live in his own. Matter of fact, he can't wait to get away from us.
Oh, wow.
Like we go on vacation, and Jack will say, it's funny, I should show you guys the text. He'll go, I'll say, Jack, I need to know if you leave here for any reason, and I need to know when you get back. So he'll go, I'm going to walk the dog. He'll text me, he goes, I'm getting back. He's so nervous that I'm going to get mad at him for not telling me. He'll send me a text, Dad, I'm getting in the shower, so if you text me for the next 20 minutes, I won't answer, but I'll let you know when I'm out.
Wow,
and, so he's gotten so good at that and so good at being independent that he really looks forward to it. And I think most special needs parents would tell you that's the goal. Get them living on their own, get them a productive job, and then they're off to the races. So I appreciate you asking me.
Oh, no problem, because this is hopefully a job in the radio thing is what I'm striving for, but I work as a special ed paraeducator.
Yeah, so you know the drill.
I know
every kid's different.
Every kid's different.
Some kids are going to be less verbal. Some kids you can't shut them up. That's
Right.
my son. Not surprisingly, when you consider who his dad is. But the biggest thing they worry about, like my buddy Tom Murray, who's a sportscaster I worked with at KCAL for a lot of years. He lives in New York now, but he and I worked together at KCAL for 10, 15 years, and he has an older brother who's a special needs. Can't call him a kid anymore. He's 60.
Oh,
but
wow.
Tom jokes that his brother is the happiest guy in their family. He has another brother and another sister, and of the 4 kids, the special needs guy is the happiest. And what he said to me once is, and I share this with other people, and you probably do too, if you're in special needs education, is Tom said to me once, he goes, I don't know what it's going to look like, but Jack will find his way. I've seen it happen 100 times.
Yep.
That these special needs kids turn into special needs adults and they find their way. The hardest thing for you is going to be you don't know what it looks like.
Right.
And I can't tell you what it's going to look like. But he'll find his way. And I always keep that in the back of my mind that, he's probably not going to have the life I had or that you guys have, but he'll find his way.
Yeah, definitely. And I like you mentioned it 10 years ago, it's so different than what 10 years, but imagine another 10 years.
Right. And you know
years.
this too, that it's more accepted now. Like more schools have special needs educators like you. More schools have special needs programs.
And more immersion programs too, where they have classes, but they are immersed with the other classes and things of that nature. So it's improved.
One of my happiest days was Jack went to school in the Manhattan Beach public school system. And so he was with the same kids from the time he was with kindergarten up until he went to high school. And so I've known all these kids since they were 4 and 5 years old, and now they're all 20 to 25 years old. And when Jack was in high school, one of those kids came to me and they said, hey, just so you know, we never let anybody give Jack a hard time. we'd beat the crap out of him. I go, well, don't beat the crap out of anybody, but I appreciate you looking out for him. And so that's what you see too is before when those kids were ostracized because they were different.
Exactly.
Now they have a community of other kids that kind of look out for them, which is really cool.
Right. Exactly. Well, John, I mean, we just truly appreciate you opening your time to us and allowing us to get to know your story. I mean, we've heard you on the station. We hear you on covering the Lakers, but it's just really great to get to know a little bit more of how you got here.
Oh, I'm glad you guys asked me. So I'm sure you guys have talked about it. Who's your dream guest at this point? Like who if I said Genie pops out of a bottle, you could say your next guest is anybody you want, and he or she would say yes, who would it be?
God, he's no longer with us.
So it'd be Kobe.
Yeah.
I've never heard LeBron on a podcast other than his own, but I'm sure he's done it.
I would love to have LeBron.
The guy you guys got to get, and you may have to do it like this, is Michael.
Yes.
Because Michael has so many great stories, and just about you guys realize that not only has Michael never had to do a resume, okay? No one in his family has. He gets married to Julie. They have 3 boys, and they all become professional athletes. So, I mean, Mike, you can count the amount of times Michael's worn a tie on 2 hands. I've only seen, he sent me a picture the other day of him at a wedding in Portland, and he was wearing a tie, and I said, this is only the 3rd time I've ever seen Michael in a tie, and I've known him for 25 years. The first time was at Dr. Buss's funeral. Mm-hmm. He wore a tie to that. And the second time was when we went to the White House with Kobe and Powell and those guys. Michael wore a tie for that. But at that wedding was only the 3rd time. So you can ask him about that if you ever get him. Well, and if you'll come to him, he'll do it.
Definitely. I mean, we also, because we interviewed Pepe Mantilla, and we thought it would be so awesome to have them two, and we kind of do a...
Well, they'll just yell at each other. You guys won't get a word in edgewise. But people misunderstand that relationship. Pepe, the reason Pepe's on our show is because of Michael. Mm-hmm. Michael invited him. I mean, Michael invites Pepe to everything. Mm-hmm. So they're like brothers. They bicker at each other, and they make fun of each other, but Michael looks out for him. Mm-hmm. Pepe's a great guy, and we've kind of married the Spanish and English broadcasts through Pepe. And Samuel, who does the play-by-play, is a really good dude. So it's fun having Pepe kind of in our world. Those guys, we're taping this on a Monday. They're coming in tomorrow.
Oh, awesome!
Michael and Pepe are coming in tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, if you could send the word to Michael Thompson,
I will.
We definitely will go out there. We will go out there.
If you're willing to go to him, and it might just be a day where you guys come in here.
Yeah.
And he'll come in here, and you can do this like we're doing it now.
Exactly.
And, that'd be a really fun one.
That would be awesome, yes.
Yeah, he'd be a fun guy to get. Bill McDonald would be fun for you guys to get, our TV guy. He's a really funny guy. Trudell would be fun.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of people in Laker world that you guys would love talking to.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, before I forget, we have a pin, right?
Oh, yeah.
A pin?
So the Circle of Trust, we give out pins, and you will appreciate the detail. Casper actually helped design this pin. And
because during the Olympics, that's a big thing at the Olympics. Is everybody collects pins.
Yeah, so we get this out.
I don't think I knew about this. I don't think
you see Jorge wear it on his cap sometimes.
Okay, so what's on the pin?
So I kind of did it like what is like the currency on the dollar bill with the all-seeing eye. So, but instead it's the radio mic. That's the radio.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, headphones.
I will put this on today.
Yeah,
I will wear this. So if you watch YouTube. If you watch YouTube today, I'll have it on.
Yes, exactly. More of a reason why to watch our episode on YouTube, so you can see John Ireland pinning himself with the Circle of Trust pin.
I will have it on. I will have it on today, and that way, if anyone asks, I will tell them I got it from you guys.
Yes,
so thank you for this.
No problem.
It will make the Circle of Trust very happy, and the Circle of Trolls, they're a different group. Maybe
there are some trolls, but for the most part, people are fairly nice. Like every once in a while, I can count the amount of people I've blocked on social media on one hand. The only way I would ever block you is if you if you say something radically inappropriate,
Right.
particularly about somebody I work, like I hate the people that gang up on the women here, that gang up on Lindsay, that gang up on Laura, that gang up on Emily, Ramona. I mean, it's the quickest way for me to block you. And the other thing is if you have a lot of porn on your feed, my wife will look at me and I'll go, I swear I didn't look this up. Yeah.
those-
Some guys have that.
Somebody's algorithm jumps on
Right.
yours because of that.
Right.
No, well, as you said, like, how people defend your son and you appreciate that. Just so you know, we do that too. When we see that, we all gang up and say, hey, get out of here. That we
Right.
don't need that kind of stuff in here.
Well, I will just say this to people that do that, and my guess is that most people who would do that wouldn't be watching this, but just in case you are. It's really hard for women to make it in the sports media industry. Really hard. Trust me, they're up against a ceiling that hardly anyone has been able to crack. So why make it harder? Right. I mean, we need to make it easier for them. And these women that work here are all pretty extraordinary. Ramona's great, Emily's great, Laura's great, Lindsay's great. And so because of that, I like to champion them because they have a harder road than I did. So I don't like to see people make it harder for them.
All right. Well, John, thanks. Thanks once again for spending time with us here on Two Dudes, One Pod. And, maybe we'll have another interview soon.
Yeah, let me know. Happy to do it. And thank you for having me on this time.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. Circle
See ya.
out.